Welcome to our webinar here at Toshiba. My name is Anthony and I've got with me here.
My name is Dennis. I'm from ELO Digital, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Anthony.
Pleasure. So the topic of today's discussion is all about archiving. I've been to probably 50 different schools in my lifetime in terms of looking at solutions, and every single school I've been to, they've all got archive boxes in an attic. Last week I went to one big shipping container in the back. That's where almost to capacity. They've got filing cabinets. They've got they're just jam packed. There's always archive boxes everywhere in every single school. And the key reason no one's actually solved the problem, they've always just out of sight, out of mind, is cost. That's one of the main drivers. And that's one of the things I'd really like you to actually talk about, Dennis, in terms of how do we offer a solution in terms of helping schools to archive student records, staff records, and any other documentation relating to education in a simple, easy, cost-effective manner.
That's a good point, Anthony, because our compliance and the safety of our data shouldn't be held to account due to a massive cost burden on each of us. And that's what we've been working here at ELO creating, is a effective yet not, oh my God, I need to empty my pockets out for all the possible change I have because this is too expensive to find solution. And so the eArch for Education solution really builds on three pillars to provide that. A structured repository, knowing how to file data correctly and compliantly. A proper search interface. So then, great, I put the data away, and now I need to find it. And critically, I need to find the sensitive data that isn't present in a lot of education information. And then finally, great, I've had all the data, but now how do we dispose of it? How long do we retain it? How do we dispose of it? And then, do we need to hold this for longer? And those are the three real pillars that underpin our solution.
That sounds great, because I can definitely tell you I've worked on quotes, and every single quote I've put out there is in excess of $100,000 when you're talking about, we're going to take all your documents, we're going to take it away, and we're going to archive it, we're going to do the whole digital transformation, put some metadata, and at the end of it, I'm going to give you a USB stick with images of all your documents and a CSV file with all the metadata. That's what you're going to get. And I think every quote I've provided in the past has been well in excess of $100,000 to achieve that. So I'm very interested to see actually a demo of how the solution is going to help be cost effective and actually how we can solve that compliance, that heavy cost of compliance.
Well, it'd be my pleasure to. So how about we dig into the first pillar, that structured repository?
Perfect.
Let's have a look at that repository structure. What we're seeing in front of us here is our Australian Society of Archivists compliant repository structure. We've built this to conform with the guidelines set forward with them. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to our student management area, and we're going to file an incident report for a student, Gil Pilot. What we're seeing here is the in tray. The in tray is one of the ways that we can get data into the system. What we have here is the incident where Gil broke into a paint disposal area and got their foot stuck in a bucket, causing lacerations.
Ouch.
And that's not an unoriginal idea. No, there is an unoriginal idea, because that happened at my school several times. But we'll move on from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our metadata form, and we're going to open up the student management metadata form. Now, the first things first is we're going to add in the student information. And if I simply press backspace, I can see all the different students here. Likely Gil is right at the top. And as I select that, it'll fill in all the data that the student has. So I filled in the student's ID, the last name, the first name, and the date of birth were populated. Now we're going to go to the Functions tab. This is where we assign that retention period. We do so with this eArch search field here. Now, paint disposal, I'm not really sure, but it is student management and it is an incident. So what I'm going to write is I'm going to write incident. And there we go. If I select this option here, we'll have all the retention data filled in. Student management, health and welfare, accidents and incidents, and it's a register, because that's what we're doing. We're registering this incident. And then finally, we add the category for this. We'll call it C block paint break-in. Now, once I press OK, this will be filed into the system. Additionally, we can see a description of what's occurred. We can see the disposal action, destroy 75 years after last entry, some notes, and the retention period as well as the disposal due date. I've just pressed OK. It's disappeared from my in tray. And if I press Go To, there's the document filed under the Students folder.
That was amazing, Dennis. I just love the simplicity of the solution. Now, from an end user perspective, I can tell you now, I don't have to be an archivist. I don't have to have the title of records manager. I don't need to know the ASA back to front. The whole 54 pages and every line of every different document type. I just loved how all you have to do is enter the keyword incident, and it just self-populates all the possible legislation. So you could type in the actual legislation number, and the fact that incident report, type that in, select that, 75 years straight away populates, and you can actually change the date. Obviously, when you're doing a backscanning project, that might be a 10-year-old incident report that you can just tweak it automatically to that date, and it will update the actual disposal date down the track. Yeah, it's just so simple and easy. And once you've successfully archived it, I think the fact that the whole structure of the folders, subfolders, and how you've broken it all down automatic, and it's still according to ASA, that is what just keeps this solution so simple and easy to use. I know the way I do subfolders, the way I would go and file something is definitely not the same how you're going to follow that structure, but I definitely love how it automatically just follows the ASA guidelines, from the folder structure to the actual, in terms of the actual archiving, listing all the disposal dates and retention clause all in one click button. I think that's where the benefits are going to lie, and keep, as we focus on, the cost low. You can do this project on your own, in-house, and keep the costs low. I think the next part is, how do you find those documents once you've actually archived them into eArch?
Yeah, well, let's have a look right there. Let's see all the different ways that we can find documents and how the iSearch feature will let students, or not students, but let the staff actually find the information they need to find and not walk into the warehouse for an hour looking up. Is this scale? Is it down there? Is it under someone's chair? It's all in one central area.
Perfect.
So we've now navigated our way to the search area, as you can see here, Anthony, and a bit empty, but let's populate it. So on the left-hand side here, we can see various different ways to search for data. We can have a look at the entry type of the document. We can have a look at the date. Was it filed today? Should we search in the last 10 days, last 30 days, last 3 months? 3 months would be interesting, but that's really for from a certain date onwards, unless, of course, you can file in the future. Very skillful. And we can have a look at who's it filed. Who has filed the documents in the system, and as well, any particular metadata forms there are. But what is a key strength of the search feature is the full text database search that we have. So every document that's added to the system undergoes an optical character recognition, and the documents get added to the full text data. What does that mean in practical terms? What it means is that I can search for the wording present in the document, not necessarily just the name of the document. So if you're going through a large back scanning operation, you may not have the time to properly name every single document. That's okay. You can still find the data, because if right now I write C block and press enter, it's going to show us two fields, school incident report and C block paint break-in. Now, the school incident report, that doesn't say C block anywhere there in the name. But if we look at the content, there in the location C block. And that's one of the ways we can really cut down time in finding information with eArch.
I'm looking at, in terms of search-wise, how much time I can save. The fact that I can search by keyword, that's going to make my life so much easier as an end user. I don't necessarily have to remember actually what happened, roughly timeline. Actually, it was an instant involving this person, and just type that. It's like my Google search, and I've got all that information. Just one little tap, and I've got that details. I think that is where we're going to see a significant time saving. If I had some legal matter that I need to find for a student, it seems like all I have to do is just type that student's number or student ID, for example, and all the records will come, and you'll just be able to simply in the search and tick which actual documents you need, and copy and paste and send. It seems that's as easy as the experience can be. Okay, that's very easy user experience from my perspective. Another huge challenge when we start doing these archive projects, Dennis, is actually, are we actually aware of what we're scanning, the content in there? Now, the term personal identifiable information. So what if I've been scanning documents that have my name, my address in there? I've got my Medicare number. I've got, really scary if I've got my credit card details somewhere, tax file numbers. There's all sorts of personal information that on that document that could, person, recognize who I am. Sadly, even if it's easy to scan, that person is not actually looking at the content information. Can you help us in any way in terms of the solution to actually help us in terms of that PII around that space?
Absolutely. So eArchive education as well comes with the PII module. We can call this AI, we can call this pattern recognition, we can call it Skynet if that's the name we want to use for it. But really what it is it breaks down the content of the document. This can be just the document itself. It can even be an image. It will scan the text and it will identify where any PII isn't present. In fact, let me show you right now.
Okay.
And here we are back now in the repository, back as well with our school incident report. Hopefully Gil has got their foot out of the bucket by now. This has been filed to the system. And with our PII bot, it's analyzed the text that's present in it, and it's detected certain information, certain sensitive information. And the way we access this is that I simply bring up the metadata form, and I navigate my way to the PII tab. We can see that PII has been analyzed, and that it's true for PII status. There is PII currently present. We can see that a person has been identified, and we can see that a location has been identified. There are also other fields that we can use here, Australian-specific fields for that matter. It's not all some American jargon that we don't use here. These are Australian-specific fields. We can see there's Medicare. We can see there's ABN, tax file number, and we can even add additional fields as required to by the school. So a certain school or education facility may have certain terminology that will be present, which is sensitive data. We can add that into the system and we can teach the AI to find it. If I start a workflow for the document, I can in fact search by selecting the correct field. We can do a search here and check for the status of PII documents. So if I click these few buttons here, all of a sudden I can see every single document that's been analyzed in that system that has PII present. I can even choose to narrow it down, find all documents with credit card information present in it. Permission slips got through the system, permission slip was scanned, there's a credit card information, I've got to get rid of that. And I can then choose to redact it. I can then forward it on to the administration team, who can then do their own actions with it, edit the document, redact it. It's up to them. There's a lot of options there. But the key point here is not what we do with it, whilst important, it's that we can find it in the first place.
That's exactly what, in terms of that ability to just make us aware that actually we've captured information that's very sensitive. I think that's the key to it, that we don't, without us even knowing, the AI in the background or the pattern recognition that's running on the background, all the data, I just feel that sense of security in the sense that I know if I've scanned something sensitive that someone will be alerted, they're aware that I've scanned something with sensitive information. I need to review it and I need to make a decision what to do it before I archive it. I think that is the key part of what this component of this bot can actually do. It doesn't matter what type of document. And I love how you can customize it. If I've got a sensitive field that's specific, it could be something related to, say, a disability, or it could be something health related, that you could actually enter that or look for that pattern around, tick, some type of New South Wales health record or health identifier. You could still actually create the bot to do that pattern recognition software. Is that correct? That will actually highlight and make that that's going to make life a lot easier in terms of how, once again, keep those costs down, make sure we're not going to get a penalty down the track because we've captured all this sensitive information we shouldn't have, to just make that solution, very seamless. Thanks for the demo, Dennis. I can just see from an end user perspective, these are the core benefits how I can actually use this system. It is really easy to use. I don't have to be a records manager. I can be someone in admin. I can see an image of the archive document, and it's just really common sense archiving. Oh, this is an incident report. Oh, this is a building report. It's so easy for me to just type some keywords and really find it. It's compliant. It's all built in. I don't have to worry about, is it going to meet the ASA? What's the retention policy? How long do I have to keep it? Actually, I just need to know and recognize the type of document it is, punch it all in, and actually it just pre-populates everything for me. So it's just really easy and compliant. That's going to make it so cost-effective for everyone in education. I don't have to think about all these potentially outsourcing it and finding do I build it in SharePoint? What do I store? What is it? This is an end-to-end solution. You can manage the whole onboarding of documents. You can use a scanner. I can use my MFD scanner to. It's all managed for me, and then I can actually run it all in-house. I don't have to rely on actually outsourcing, and the solution is included. I don't have to just migrate all my data on that USB stick and say, okay, now let's create a whole SharePoint solution, or let's buy, it's all included, all in that one simple solution, and it's secure. It's got ELO's got all their own proprietary encryption. So it just makes it a nice all-in-one package, and and the most importantly, I can see why now I can't say, hey, I don't have the funds, it's too expensive to archive all my archive boxes and store it all the way electronically, and how I'm going to find it, how I'm going to meet compliance. This one simple eArch solution will do all those things in a very cost-effective manner.
Absolutely.
I think this is a great time to look at some Q&A, and these are common questions that I face whenever I actually get to a school. Look, it's sad, but what if there is a legal matter? Maybe, sadly, a case of sexual abuse for a child. I've got to now look at my legal hold. So I need to now adjust that actual retention policy for that student. Instead of, say, 30 years, I've actually, I think the Royal Commission, recommended 45 years ago. How does eArch deal with legal hold, in a case where that happens?
That's a reality of any document management system. It's never static. It's never just, great, the document's in 75 years, see you later, off it goes. There's a live environment. And in these cases where a legal hold or a document hold is required, we've actually already incorporated that into the Functions tab. When we were filing the incident report for 75 years, there was a document hold thing, which was defaulted to no. In the event that we need to keep this document for longer than 75 years, we change this field to yes, and it can no longer be deleted with the standard disposal searches that exist. You can't even find the document anymore when you're going through your disposal search.
Oh, wow. So if I get a case, I know student ID 1234, there's a matter. So all I have to do is search for that student, all the documents come up, and actually just simply click from legal hold, no, yes, and that'll automatically change. Oh,
that's it. That's exactly it. I don't need to go into a database. I don't need to wait for the 7 moons to align to finally be able to get it. I just click here, and then I click here, and suddenly that data is secure.
That's a very simpler way, a very easy way to manage the legal hold. Another question that I can think of right now, and yeah, most business managers will be asking this, right? How long is the deployment time? Because I've looked at SharePoint solutions where I'm trying to build 160 different retention policies. It could take me months and be very costly to actually implement. What are we looking at in terms of this ERC solution in terms of implementation time?
Well, it's quick. That's the benefit of it, because it already has a structured repository. It has a structured, just everything is ready to go. Now, I'm not going to tell you 3 or 4 days, because the second I go back to ELO Digital, hi Christian, our head of TPS, he's going to beat me up. But I will say that it's quick. So let's say we start the deployment time when school holidays start. The staff, the students will come back, and there'll be a fully fledged document management system ready for them to go. So it's a quick deployment time. And part of that is not just the actual physical deployment, the software, but as well the training, getting people ready to use it. And with the intuitive filing mechanisms that exist, the training as well is quicker. So we're not looking at 20, 30, 40, 50 days worth of implementation. We're looking at a very short span, because the sooner we get it in, the sooner you start being compliant. It's all well and good to buy a software that makes you compliant if next year you finally start using it.
So in total, basically, if I sign, go ahead, you're telling me, well, school holiday is 2 weeks. You're going to have everyone trained up, everything ready to go in 2 weeks' time. Is probably the timeline.
It's pretty good. Even less time than that if we're really swift about it. So it's quick.
Again, I can see why it's cost effective. If the implementation time is only, it sounds like like I said, it's within a week potentially, and then with training, that's how we can keep significant development time, training costs, everything, and keep the costs low for this project. Okay, again, you're carrying on that theme. How are we going to archive in a cost-effective manner?
Yeah.
The other, most schools have dabbled in, as we mentioned, SharePoint. It's not, they're looking at compliant, they're looking at actually other solutions they've got. They might have started that path and actually started building their SharePoint solution. Does this solution work seamlessly with SharePoint, or is it the whole separate archive? How would that work?
Well, we have a variety of different integration options when it comes to SharePoint. And we can integrate the ELO repository directly into SharePoint. We can have SharePoint publish documents to ELO, or a variety of other ways. And what that means is, having already gone down the SharePoint path, you don't have to abandon everything and start again with ELO. You can just migrate the data across, or we can just put that repository directly into SharePoint. So you're not losing the investment you've already made, you're refining that investment.
So I can, just looking into that, so I can scan to SharePoint. And I'm just looking at that experience. It's very standard. I can select that student ID, and it will populate the first name, last name detail. Would I just simply select, say, I saw how you do it on ELO. Do I just simply have some document types in there? So I can select, say, invoice. And then once it goes into actually that you've got a sync with ERC, it'll automatically actually, when it goes to ERC, because I know it's an invoice, it's going to look and do exactly what you showed on that demo. It'll just grab all the related information, the right retention policy is 7 years as an example, and put that disposal date automatically.
Yep.
So even if they're using SharePoint.
That's right. So with SharePoint, provided we select the right metadata form, we fill in the right metadata itself, that gets filed away nicely.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming to our webinar today, and especially thank you, Dennis, for coming to our showroom today. In terms of if you've got any further questions, please feel free to send it to myself or through the chat. And also the topic for our next webinar coming up is all around document management and security. As we've seen in the press, all the data leaks and everything else, security is actually a very key component right now. And we'll talk about how we can focus on getting your environment to be secure and safe for all your documents.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone.